What is the new proposed rule for physical therapy regarding physical therapist assistant reimbursement rate and the Medicare Hard Cap? What am I even talking about right now? What time of day am I recording this at? It's a little past 11, which is irrelevant for you. If you have no clue what I'm talking about, that's okay, because I'm going to explain the new proposal in this video, and I also want to make another video that talks about how it will affect you, like how it will affect the future of physical therapy. Will it affect, the PTA salary? Will it affect if you're able to get a job easily? That's kind of what I want to talk about in the other video, but this video is just explaining the proposal and what it is. It's kind of going to be a summary of what it is. If you want to look up more details about it, then I'll put a link in the description to a few different websites that you can browse the proposal for yourself. The first thing to understand is that this new rule is just a proposal right now, so it's not set in concrete. It could change, it could be modified, but at the time of this recording, it is just a proposed rule, so it could look differently in the future. Basically, this proposed rule is that starting in 2020, you're going to have to add a modifier to distinguish whether a PTA or an OTA provided physical therapy or occupational therapy services, because in 2022, there's going to be a reimbursement rate change of how much you're going to get reimbursed for that visit. Another thing is that the Medicare Hard Cap will be taken away. What in the world does all that mean? Let's break it down. To start, Medicare is only for people who are over the age of 65. That's when you are eligible for Medicare. And Medicare proposed a rule that says in 2020, you are going to have to start distinguishing between who's seen the patient, whether the PTA did or whether the PT did. And when you distinguish that, when you submit the claim or the bill for those services, you have to put a modifier on there, and all that modifier is saying is whether the PTA seen the patient or whether the PT seen the patient. This also applies for occupational therapy as well. So the reason that they're making you add this modifier to distinguish who's seen the patient, whether the PT did or whether the PTA did, is that because they want you getting in the habit of doing it, because in 2022, they're going to implement a reimbursement rate change. So they anticipate reimbursing PTAs for physical therapy services at 85% of what a PT would get reimbursed. So if the PT got reimbursed $100 to see that patient for 60 minutes, then the PTA would be getting $85 reimbursement rate for that same amount of time. Now, the reason that they are implementing this reimbursement rate change is because they're taking away the Medicare Hard Cap. Now, what in the world does that mean? When a patient comes in for physical therapy who has Medicare, which means they're over the age of 65, and they want to get physical therapy services, their benefits for that is going to be the same for everybody. So universal, whoever has Medicare, it's the same, and they are allotted so much money per year for physical therapy. And there's a cap. So if they come in for physical therapy in January because they got hurt, and then they want to come back in February, and then again in November, and then in December, if they reach their Medicare cap, which is how much money they're allotted for physical therapy services, if they reach that cap, they can no longer get physical therapy after that. So they are on their own until the new year starts. And so when they're saying they're going to remove that cap, basically what's that saying is that there won't be a limit to how much care we can provide for someone who's over the age of 65. So if we think it's medically necessary to keep that patient in physical therapy, then we're allowed to. It's no longer going to be a cap, but it will be a threshold. Now, what that means is when a patient reaches that number of what Medicare wants them to be at, you have to add a modifier that lets the billing company know that they are going above and beyond that threshold, and it's just to let the insurance company know that it's medically necessary to keep this patient continuing in physical therapy. Does that make sense? I hope so. I don't know. This could be terrible. When I'm talking about adding a modifier for PTAs, or when I'm talking about adding a modifier to let them know if you cross that threshold, what that basically means is that when you submit the bill to the insurance company, you have to put a code on that bill, which is, in other words, a modifier. So you put that code on the bill and you submit it to the insurance company. When the insurance company gets the bill, they can look up that code, and that code tells them whether a PTA seen the patient or whether a PT seen the patient, patient and whether they crossed that threshold. So if they see, okay, the code's on here, that means they crossed the threshold. Now they know to look to see why it was medically necessary for them to do that. Now, what do you do if both the PTA and the PT saw the patient? How do you distinguish which one you're going to get reimbursed for? If the PTA started the treatment session and they did exercises with the patient and they worked with them, and then for the last half of the treatment session, the PT worked with them, gave them exercises and did manual therapy, how do you know which one to bill? How do you know which rate you're going to get reimbursed at? This is what the proposal says. They say that if a PTA provides over 10% of the treatment session, then they will reimburse at 85%. Now, 10% isn't very much. An average physical therapy treatment session lasts anywhere from 30 minutes to 60 minutes. So going off that 10% rule, and you see a patient for 60 minutes, that means that a PTA is only allowed to see the patient for 6 minutes, or else they will have to bill 85% of the reimbursement rate. That's all they're gonna get. So if the PTA sees the patient for 10 minutes, gives them 10 minutes of exercise in the beginning of treatment, and then the other 50 minutes the PT sees them, they will still have to be reimbursed at 85% of their normal rate, which is kind of crazy. Also, according to the proposal, not only will you have to add a modifier to the billing, but you will also have to add documentation to your regular daily notes or treatment notes that you're going to be doing, which takes more time. To recap again all of that gibberish that I just said, number one is that they are removing the Medicare Hard Cap, meaning there's not going to be a specific amount of money that you can see the patient for. That's going to be gone, and it's now going to be a threshold which you can go over, and you can see the patient for more visits and charge more money. You can do that now. Number two, you have to distinguish who provided physical therapy services, whether it was the PTA or whether it was the PT, and you have to put that on your bill. You have to write that in your daily note. You have to distinguish that. And then the third thing is there will be a change in reimbursement, whether the PT saw them or whether the PTA saw that patient. There will be a change in reimbursement by 85%. That's what the proposal is. And also, this proposal applies to basically all physical therapy settings. So you'll see this in private practices, skilled nursing facilities, hospitals, and so on. Now, I do want to make another video on how this is going to affect not only PTAs, but the profession and everything, private practices, small businesses, big businesses. How is this going to affect everything? And before I make that video though, I want to have that conversation in the comment section. I want to know what you guys think. How is this good for the profession? Is this bad for the profession? Are PTAs going to be out of a job? What do you guys think? How will this affect the field? Let me know in the comment section. Let's have a conversation about it, and I hope we can get through this. Yeah. I don't know. See you on another video. Peace.